Listen up, people. If you have people in your life that make you feel bad about the opportunity you were born into or the opportunities that you were given, get away from them. Get away from them immediately. Okay? Instead, what they should be focused on, if they actually care about you, right, is if you don't end up making the most out of that opportunity. Because you were given something that maybe many people weren't given, and now you aren't making the most out of it. Now, of course, you're going to have your own struggles, right? Maybe you got into a certain school. Maybe you get to do some things like maybe, like me, live at your parents' house while others can't. And others will be like, oh, you get to do this. Oh, you get to be that way, bro. Oh, yeah, you're pretty. Oh, you're this race, so you're this. Oh, you're rich, so you can do that. Like, bro, really? These are the people you want to surround yourself with? I let people like this make me feel bad about being in the position I was. And I realized it was they were focused on the wrong thing. They only resented and hated the fact that I was in that position because they weren't. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't care at all. Because what they need to really care about is if you're making the most of that opportunity. Because in doing so, you have the opportunity to help yourself and maybe all the others around you. That is what matters. And that holistically is, I think, in some sense, benefiting the common good, right? If everybody made the most out of the opportunities that they had, assuming they helped the common good, right? And the common good can be very, very hard to define. But I guess I'm saying this in some general sense that it just helps people, right? Then that just makes the world a better place and it tilts the world into a little bit more of the positive direction. But these people will get mad at you because you're a certain way, you look a certain way, you have certain things. And you know what happens? This is exactly why those very people stay complacent. Because they look at the opportunity you have and they think that because of that, because of these external things, that is what makes you who you are. And to some degree, yes, those opportunities are going to help you grow, right? But it is in your decision to be able to take the most advantage of that opportunity is what makes it what allows you to grow. And people only talk, people only want to talk about the good opportunities. People never want to focus on the shitty opportunities that anyone is given. Not the shit part of the hand that's dealt, but the good part of the hand that's dealt. They love focusing on that, bro. They love it. And then they become so arrogant as to say that if I was in this person's position, I would have their problem solved. No, you wouldn't. You want to know why? Because you're assuming that the mind you have right now would be the mind that that person has as well if you were to be in their body and just immediately solve the problem and snap it away. But that's not the case because that person is an agglomeration of what uh, is an accumulation of their thoughts, their feelings, their childhood, how they grew up, every little minute factor that is so complex to even comprehend that I don't think you fully understand the gravity of what it would really be like to be in another person's shoes. You can't just think that. That's very arrogant, and that's the most simple-minded way and most simplified version of trying to, I don't know, that's the most simple way to answer that question, but it's not the right way to do it, is basically what I'm saying. To think that you could, just solve someone's problem just being by being in their position. Arrogant, bro. And again, if you really care for these people, then instead of being arrogant about how, oh, I would have made the most out of what you have, you're so lucky to have this, you help them with their struggles and how do you do that? You try to tell them your story, and maybe they could relate to that to some degree, and you try your hardest to relate those two stories to a degree and give the most powerful advice you can so they can make the most out of the opportunity that they've been given. Because some people, man, they don't realize it, but some of the blessings they're given, right, can actually be curses in other aspects of their mind. Like, for example, someone who is rich might have a mindset that they don't particularly value anything, so they're very nihilistic. And you might say, well, I'd rather be uh I'd way rather be rich than poor. But again, you're misunderstanding that. You're looking at one minute factor that makes up the entirety of someone's life, and you might assume that that makes you happy to some degree or relieve some stress, and you might actually be right when it comes to that, right? Because it's in my personal belief that money can help you relieve some of that, and it is kind of foundational to help you, allow you to focus on some things, other things, and not have to worry about like the financial stretch end of things, right? But that's not necessarily always the case, because you forget that this person might struggle with a whole lot of different things that you think you've solved and you think that you could solve if you were in their position, but that's not necessarily the case. Because if you grew up the way they did, who knows, you wouldn't have turned out that way. Who knows? That's why every time I make these videos, I don't try to act as if things are just so easy to get out of, and it's so easy to get into self-improvement and all these things, because I understand I was the kind of kid in high school that would have looked at a joker and said, why is he reading a book? Or why is he doing this? Why is he doing something good for himself? I did not understand. But now that I do, right? And I know this I tend to lean into other topics and stuff like that, but now that I do, I understand that, look, I'm going to make the most out of the opportunity I have right now with everything that I have, and I'm going to do it unapologetically. It's that simple. I don't care if I get to live at a place that you don't, or get served the kind of food you don't. It doesn't matter. Okay? It is what it is. It is what it is. Jeez. Life is unfair. But at one point, you'll also come to realize, things like this, man, especially between friends, when they start comparing the opportunities each were given, like, yeah, oh, you got better this, you got better that, things like that. It's like you start to put yourself in a position where you start to resent this person slowly. I know one of my friends would do this back then, and I'm not friends with him anymore because of this. But even then, I've closed off and learned to deal with the resentment that I had for him because of this. Because he would tell me how, you know, how much he would want to be in my position, and man, you're rich, man, you're this, man, you're that. I'm like, bro, listen, we all have our own problems. And I started realizing that we all have a tendency to start, again, not only resenting these people and resenting each other, because one's resentful about the opportunities you have, and then one becomes resentful because they keep talking about the opportunities they have and how they can't like fulfill them, right? And they're trying their very hardest, but they can't. And then this other person's just like, oh, you should just be able to do it, bro. What do you mean? What do you mean, bro? I don't think that's the right way to go about it. If you really care for this person, you have to be able to tell them how they can actually get out of that struggle that they're in, so that they can take the most of their opportunity that they've been given. Because, bro, in life, frankly, you pick your kind of difficult. One other thing is, we always start getting into these battles of comparison. Oh, you have this, you have that. We just start comparing each other, right? And again, that not only breeds resentment, as I've already mentioned, but that also breeds this level of victim mentality that I've suffered more than you. therefore you don't understand me, or therefore you haven't gone through it as bad as me, or things like that. And again, I was arrogant to think this at times too. When I was, you know, down bad at some of my lowest points, I was like, no one understands me, bro. No one knows me like I do. But that was arrogant to think because, again, that is only, how would I say, I was only looking at that aspect of people's lives and just comparing it to that. And I was just like, oh, look, they don't go through it as bad as I do. When really, they might have just had a really, really good mask on, or I might have just not known, and they might have struggles that are completely and utterly different to mine that I can't even, that I might see as easy. And therefore, I might say, as a result of that, I might say I suffer more, right? So we easily start getting into these comparison battles too, and that doesn't end up well. That happens in the modern day with race. It's like, oh, sometimes I see this shit on the internet. I think it's so dumb, bro. Like, people say, oh, you have less melanin in your skin equals you've been through less suffering. I'm like, what is that, bro? Are you serious right now? You're really gonna start comparing pains and acting like, oh, I've gone through the most pain, bro. Like, bro, it's just so hard, bro. Like, bro, pick your difficult. I see this with men and women online as well. And I used to think this too. This is what the red pill does to you as well. You start comparing yourself to the life of a woman's, and you go, yeah, we have it much harder, bro. We have it much harder. When you don't realize that women actually have it difficult, they just don't know it yet. Especially these modern women that think they can get away with just, you know, sleeping around with anybody, doing all this stuff. Like, they don't realize it, but it does affect the options that they will have in the future. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but, you know, and they'll call me incel, they'll call me misogynistic, but that's just the way it is. Because you think about it, we all have different hearts at different points in our lives, and some of us might be tricked into thinking that we have an easy life all throughout, and that's why I'm so glad all I had to go through what I did earlier on in life, and I went through what I did, which I'll get into in other videos. But um, it allowed me to be able to gain a level of wisdom and understand where I was in the world and stop being resentful of other people's opportunities, how where other people are, and how, like, maybe even the dating market works, things like that. Like, um, yeah, things like that. So one example of that would be like, oh, you know, women might reach their prime way earlier than men. I don't exactly know where that is, but like earlier, right? And so I'd be like, wait, why am I not? Like, especially someone that comes alone out of high school and, you know, doesn't really understand the world around them. It's like, for your value to go down even more from there is like, are you serious, man? Like, how, like, it feels like the world is crashing down on top of you, right? And then you have to understand, like, okay, the world works in this manner, and you're gonna be hit by reality really, really hard, and it's gonna suck. And once you do, you understand reality, and you're like, okay, this is how I must operate myself in order to um, become better. And that's how I discovered self improvement. I took extreme ownership, and I realized that the opportunities that were given to me, I'm going to try making the most out of, but I'm not going to let anyone make me feel bad about the opportunities I have. But you do need to put in the effort to make the most out of those opportunities, and that's what I'm saying, right? Because if I'm someone who cares for you, then I would want you to, for the betterment of not only yourself but the community around you. And so, yeah, like, stop stop doing this stuff of comparing both of y'all's opportunities. Be happy and be happy for your friend, man. And that's hard to do sometimes, but it's like, you have to look at this as an opportunity to see your friend grow, and for you to be able to grow as a result of it too, because they're in your circle, things like that, right? You can't, again, you can't compare yourself. It'll start breeding that resentment, and that's majority of the reason why they won't like to admit it. People like this won't like to admit it, but that's why they call out, people's opportunities and how privileged they are and things like that, because they wish they could be in a position like that. Let's just be honest. because I understand this because I was the same way. I was the same way when it comes to like thinking about that in men and women, not as much as like race. Um, Actually, that's a lie. No, I did. When I was back in high school, I would think I was I was inferior to people because I was simply like brown. So I thought they had more opportunity just because like dating opportunities or like job market opportunities or people were nicer to them just because of that. But it's like you can't really get mad about that because that's kind of just what they're born with. That's kind of that's just that's like what do you like what are you getting? And once I came to that realization, I was like, look at how stupid I am, bro. That is the dumbest thing ever. Are you serious? And then I asked myself the question: has someone that's brown ever been successful? Has someone that's brown had people be nice to him? Has someone who's brown had a nice wife or something like that? And the answer is yes. Like it's undeniably yes. You just have to work for it. You have to make the most out of the opportunity. So don't allow these people to make you think, oh, you're rich, you're blessed, you're all in this position, especially if you're extremely rich and all that. It's like you have your own problems, bro. You have your own mental value problems. And people think that they'd want to be in your position, but it, it is the most simple minded answer and least thought out thing that they could ever say, in my opinion. It, there's always that quote of like, if everybody was to come and meet together, right, and they throw their problems down in a pile, that you take yours and run right back. And I think that's very true, to be quite honest with you. Because, again, you have to pick your kind of difficult, bro. Life will get difficult for different people at different points because they think, because some of these very people, right, that think that, you know, because of the way they were born or because of the opportunities that they were given, life is just going to be easy, and that's the trap they end up falling in. And then because of that complacency, life hits them super hard at one point, and it just stagnates. And a good example of this. Geez, I'm stuttering a lot this video. Bear with me. A good example of this is, that quote where it's like popular guys or popular people in high school, like that's when they peak. I think that's where that comes from, is because they have that mentality that it might always be that way and they don't see it being any other possible way, right? But for someone like me who was a complete and utter opposite of that, I got hit by reality very, very hard, very, very early on. So people talk to me, they say, oh, you're years beyond your age or whatever it is, or you're very like wisdomous and things like that. And that's not to toot my own horn or anything. This is actually things people say about me. I'm just like, look, I'm just a product of the experiences I had, and I'm quite lucky I went through some of the things I did, even though I did not appreciate them, because it allowed me to finally make most of the opportunities that I was given, even if they were negative. Even if they were negative, I got so much better at dealing with that and seeing what I can gain from it. Because at that point, right, even some of the negative opportunities you're given, you just have to be able to look at those, bro, right? You have to be able to look at them and say, bro, I went through all that. I have to learn something from that now. Like, there's no way you go through all of that just to be like, oh, yeah, bro, I went through it sick, like, thank God I'm over it. No, like, you went through all that, dog. You went through all of that. Why don't you go to the effort of thinking, maybe I should actually try to learn something from that or pick something from that opportunity that I didn't find particularly enjoyable? And you might say, well, why would I go to the effort of doing that? So you suffer less. That's why. So you suffer a little bit less than what you did before. It's really just that simple. And that so you might help others suffer less, which is what I'm doing through this YouTube channel. I'm making the most of the opportunity I have with this microphone that I've been able to buy, with the iPhone that I have, with the stand case that I have, with this backyard, with everything that I have, to be able to provide as much value um, to other people. So I'm trying to use all I'm trying to make the most of my opportunity, basically. Bear with me. I'm just hella fogged up right now. I usually don't record videos at this time, so I'm just like adjusting. But yeah, if you got nothing from this video, bro, to summarize it, right? Don't allow people to make you feel bad for the opportunities you've given. If they're friends that care for you, they'll care about you making the most out of the opportunity. Not the fact that you were given it. And that is the distinction you need to know between. Because those are the friends that'll want what's best for you, or the friends that'll either become resentful, start comparing themselves to you, wishing that they were in your scenario, and thinking that simple mindset that if they were in your shoes, bro, they'd have it all solved. No, you wouldn't. I guarantee, no, you wouldn't. Because you're thinking that you just be in my spot where I am right now. No, you'd have to go through all my experiences. And I'm not sure you want to do that. Be careful what you ask for. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for y'all. Peace. Take it easy.